Okay, so you think a gym makes money by charging people a monthly fee to use some equipment. You sign up, you pay your $30 or $40 a month, maybe you show up, maybe you don't. Simple business, right? Wrong. Here's a number that doesn't add up if you believe that story. The most profitable gyms in the country generate somewhere between 25 and 40% of their total revenue from something that has nothing to do with that monthly membership fee at all. The average American gym pulls in close to $850,000 a year, and the ones outperforming that number aren't doing it by signing up more members. They're doing it by understanding something almost nobody walking through the front door ever thinks about. The membership was never really the business, it was just the entry ticket. Let's start with the piece everyone assumes is the whole story, because understanding what it actually is and isn't matters before we go anywhere else. Membership dues form the backbone of every gym's revenue, the predictable, recurring foundation everything else gets built on top of. Across the industry, the average member pays somewhere between $37 and $75 a month, though that range stretches dramatically depending on positioning. A big box budget gym competing purely on price might sit at the low end of that range, betting on enormous member volume to make the math work. A boutique studio, the kind built around a specific method or a tight-knit community, can charge multiples of that, sometimes north of $400 a month per member, because they're not really selling access to equipment, they're selling an experience people are willing to pay a premium for. Either way, here's the thing worth sitting with. Membership dues alone rarely tell you whether a gym is actually thriving or barely surviving, because the real differentiator lives somewhere else entirely. That somewhere else starts with personal training, and it's usually the single largest secondary revenue stream a gym has, often accounting for 15 to 20% of total income on its own. Think about why that number is so large. A member is already paying their monthly fee. They've already committed. Personal training isn't a new customer acquisition cost. It's revenue captured from someone who's already walked through the door and already trusts the space enough to keep showing up. Some of the smartest operators in the industry have built entire growth strategies around this single insight. One major franchise brand now generates over a fifth of its total revenue from personal training alone, built almost entirely by making the booking and coaching experience frictionless enough that members who'd never have sought out a trainer on their own end up saying yes. The lesson underneath that number is simple. The moment someone becomes a member, they've already crossed the hardest threshold. Everything after that is about giving them more reasons to spend, not convincing them to walk in for the first time. There's a deeper mechanic hiding inside this one, worth pulling apart, because it explains why personal training scales so well compared to almost everything else on this list. A trainer's time is genuinely limited. One person can only coach so many sessions in a day, but the pricing power more than makes up for that ceiling. A single hour of one-on-one coaching often sells for what a member would otherwise pay for an entire month of general access. Multiply that across even a modest roster of trainers, each running back-to-back sessions through the day, and you start to see why this single line item can rival membership revenue itself at gyms that build it deliberately, rather than treating it as an afterthought bolted onto the main business. Group fitness classes and specialty programs work on a similar logic, but with a different mechanic underneath them. Instead of one-on-one attention, you're selling access to something premium, a specialty class, a themed program, a limited time challenge, either bundled into a higher membership tier or sold as a standalone add-on. Here's a number worth sitting with a 6-week specialty program priced at $150 a person with 15 participants, generates over $2,000 from a class the gym's coaching staff would likely be running anyway as part of the regular schedule. That's not new labor costs stacked on top of new revenue. That's the exact same expertise, repackaged and priced differently, capturing money that would otherwise simply not exist. So here's a genuinely interesting question worth asking about any gym you've ever been a member of. How much of what you were offered was just the base membership, and how much was a slightly different version of the exact same service, priced as something special? What makes this category particularly powerful is what it does to retention, not just revenue. A member who's only ever used the open floor, walking in, doing their own routine, walking out, has a purely transactional relationship with the space. A member enrolled in a 6-week program, showing up for the same class at the same time with the same group of people, has something closer to a social commitment. They're not just paying for access anymore. They're showing up because other people expect them to. That shift from transaction to community is worth more to a gym's long-term financial health than almost any single price increase could ever be, because a member who feels embedded in a group is dramatically less likely to cancel than one who's simply been swiping a keycard alone for a year. Then there's retail and ancillary sales, the category most people walking through a gym barely register as a business at all. Branded apparel on a rack near the entrance, protein powder and supplements at the front desk, a juice or smoothie bar that seems like a convenience more than a revenue strategy. Here's what makes this category worth paying attention to. Gyms running an active retail program report an extra $500 to $2,000 a month in additional revenue, and the margins on these items are often dramatically higher than the margin on the membership fee itself. A shaker bottle with a logo on it, a tub of protein powder, a bottle of water at the front desk. These carry markups most members never stop to think about, because buying them feels like a small, natural extension of a workout, not a purchasing decision being made under any real scrutiny. It's revenue hitting in plain sight, built entirely on the fact that someone's already there, already in the mindset of investing in their fitness, and a $5 impulse purchase doesn't register the same way a $5 impulse purchase would anywhere else. Corporate wellness contracts and paid events form another layer, and this one's worth understanding because it changes who the actual customer is. Instead of selling to an individual walking in off the street, some gyms build relationships with local businesses, offering discounted group memberships or on-site wellness programming in exchange for a steady flow of new members and a predictable contract. Layer on top of that paid community events, transformation challenges, nutrition seminars, workshops, and you've got a category of revenue that does two things at once. It generates direct income from something the gym is already positioned to deliver, and it functions as a marketing funnel, pulling in exactly the kind of person who's likely to convert into a full membership down the line. So here's a serious question worth asking. If you were ever building a gym from scratch, would you rather spend money advertising for new members or build something people are willing to pay you for that quietly turns into new memberships on its own? The newest layer on this list is online and digital coaching, and it represents something genuinely different from everything else we've covered, because it's the first revenue stream that isn't tied to anyone physically walking through the door. A member who travels for work, someone who's moved to a different city but still wants to train with a coach they trust, someone who simply prefers training at home some days, all of these represent revenue a purely physical location would otherwise lose entirely. Digital coaching captures it instead. It's a smaller piece of the pie for most gyms today, but it's the piece growing fastest, because it's the only one not constrained by square footage or class schedules. There's a strategic implication worth naming here too, because it changes how you should think about a gym's real ceiling. A physical location has a hard cap on revenue no matter how well it's run, only so many square feet, only so many hours in a day, only so many people who can realistically train inside those walls at once. Every stream we've covered so far, training, classes, retail, corporate contracts, ultimately still lives inside that physical constraint. Digital coaching is the one exception. It's the only line item on this list that can scale without ever needing to expand the building, which is exactly why the gyms thinking furthest ahead are treating it not as a side offering, but as a genuine second business quietly operating inside the first one. Here's what ties all of this together, and it's the real answer to why the most profitable gyms don't look anything like the ones barely staying afloat. The gyms generating 25 to 40% of their revenue from outside the base membership aren't doing something exotic. They're doing something remarkably simple. They're treating every member who walks in as the start of a relationship, not the end of a transaction. The membership fee gets someone in the building. Everything after that, the training, the classes, the retail, the events, the online coaching, is about deepening that relationship in ways that generate revenue without requiring a single new person to walk through the door. That's why two gyms with the exact same number of members, charging the exact same monthly fee, can have wildly different financial outcomes. One is running a membership business, the other is running a member business, and the difference between those two words is worth every bit of the revenue gap between them. So here's what you're actually looking at. The next time you walk past a gym, and picture the business behind it. Not a building full of equipment charging a monthly fee for access. A layered system, membership, training, classes, retail, corporate partnerships, and digital coaching, each one reinforcing the others, each one turning a single relationship into multiple, overlapping streams of revenue. The membership was never the business, it was the invitation. If this changed how you think about the gym you walk into or walk past every day, that's exactly what this channel is here for. Pulling apart the hidden machines behind the businesses everyone thinks they already understand. If you got something out of this, drop a like. It genuinely helps this reach more people asking the same questions. And let me know in the comments, which of these revenue streams surprised you the most? Subscribe if you're not already, because we're breaking down another one just like this next time. See you in the next one.